The natural wonders, the most powerful and enigmatic giants in human history, vanished without a trace. What happened to them? Giants of the Ice Age. Imagine a world where survival meant wrestling a beast twice your size, where every step through frozen valleys could be your last, and where strength wasn't just a trait, but the very line between life and death. Welcome to the Pleistocene, an era when Earth was a crucible of ice, fire, and raw, primal power. In this brutal arena, one species stood taller than all the rest. Not in height, but in sheer, bone-crushing might. The Neanderthals. These weren't the dim-witted cavemen of outdated cartoons. Oh no. These were prehistoric titans, built like living tanks with muscles that could snap spears and minds sharp enough to outwit nature's deadliest predators. But here's the kicker. Despite their godlike strength, they vanished, leaving only whispers in the fossils we unearth today. How did beings so powerful simply fade into the shadows? And what can their story teach us about survival, about strength, and about the fragile thread of existence? Buckle up, because we're diving 50,000 years into the past to uncover the epic saga of the Neanderthals, a tale so gripping you won't be able to look away. The anatomy of survival. Let's delve deeper. 50,000 years ago, Europe was a frozen wasteland. Glaciers carved the land like colossal blades, and the biting air seeped into your very bones. Massive creatures roamed this world. Woolly mammoths with tusks like battering rams, cave bears that dwarfed modern grizzlies, and saber-toothed cats with fangs that gleamed like daggers. This was the Pleistocene, a time when nature didn't play favorites. To survive, you had to be tough, smart, and utterly relentless. And here were the Neanderthals, our ancient cousins, who not only survived but thrived in this brutal world. Now, Neanderthals weren't the only hominins around. Early Homo sapiens, our direct ancestors, were also beginning to spread across the globe, but they were more slender, built for endurance rather than brute force. Neanderthals, on the other hand, were the heavyweights of the human family. Imagine a body forged for combat. Short, powerful limbs packed with muscle, a ribcage so wide it could house a small fireplace, and hands that gripped like iron vices. Their anatomy wasn't random. It was evolution's answer to a world where every single day was a battle for existence. But sheer strength alone wasn't enough to make them kings of the Ice Age. Neanderthals were intelligent, terrifyingly so. They crafted tools, hunted in groups, and adapted to environments that would crush most modern humans. Their story isn't just about muscle. It's about a delicate balance of brawn, brains, and resilience in a world that demanded all three. Let's peel back the layers of their lives, starting with the very bodies that made them legendary. Unrivaled power. From bone to brawn. To truly grasp the power of the Neanderthal, we need to look at their blueprint, their bones, their muscles, and their very genetics. Imagine a skeleton built not just to stand, but to dominate. Neanderthal bones were thicker and denser than ours, like the reinforced steel of a skyscraper. Studies of their fossils, like those from the La Ferracie site in France, show massive arm and shoulder bones, with muscle attachment points that bulged with strength. Their right arm, in particular, was exceptionally developed, likely reinforced by repetitive tasks like spear thrusting or hide scraping. Their skulls were equally impressive. Unlike our more rounded craniums, Neanderthal skulls were elongated with a thick brow ridge that acted like a natural helmet. This wasn't just for show. It protected their brains during hunts or conflicts, much like a modern boxer's headgear. Their jaws were anchored by muscles so powerful they could chew through raw meat and tough vegetation, a necessity when food was scarce and cooking primitive. Moving down the torso, you'd find a barrel-shaped chest, wide and deep. This wasn't just aesthetic. It housed lungs that could intake oxygen like a high-performance engine guzzling air. During a hunt, when a Neanderthal was sprinting after a deer or wrestling a bison, that extra oxygen fueled their muscles, giving them explosive bursts of energy. Compare that to the more slender ribcage of modern humans built for long-distance running, and you see the difference. Neanderthals were sprinters and powerlifters, not marathon runners. Their limbs told another story. While Homo sapiens evolved with longer, more graceful arms and legs for endurance, Neanderthals had shorter, stockier limbs. Think of a powerlifter versus a runner. The powerlifter's compact structure maximizes force, and that's precisely what Neanderthals had. Their short limbs helped conserve heat in glacial climates and lowered their center of gravity, making every step stable and powerful. Whether they were charging through snow or dragging a mammoth carcass, their bodies were built for stability and raw brute force. And then there were their hands. Neanderthal hands were broad, with wide fingertips and thick bones that indicated immense strength. Their grip was like a vice, capable of wielding heavy spears or crushing bones. Fossil evidence from sites like Shanidar Cave in Iraq shows their hands were adapted for both precision work and power, allowing them to craft tools and subdue prey with ease. Imagine trying to arm wrestle a Neanderthal. Your hand would feel like it was caught in a hydraulic press. Genetics has confirmed it. Neanderthals share 99.9% of their DNA with us, but those tiny differences made them powerhouses. Variations in genes like LRP5 enhanced their bone density, making their skeletons almost unbreakable under stress. Their muscles were also denser, built for short, powerful bursts rather than sustained effort. In a world where survival meant wrestling a cave lion or dragging a 500-pound moose through the snow, these traits weren't just advantages, they were necessities. If a Neanderthal walked into a modern gym, they'd be a sensation. Studies estimate they could bench press 700 to 1,000 pounds, far surpassing even today's strongest powerlifters. Their deadlifts could hit 100 pounds or more, and their punches could generate 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of force, enough to shatter bone. This wasn't gym strength. This was survival strength, forged by a life where weakness meant death. The art of the hunt. Intelligence in the Ice Age strength was only half the story. Neanderthals were apex predators, and their hunts were legendary. Imagine a group of Neanderthals stalking a woolly mammoth, a 10-foot-tall beast with tusks that could impale a man. These weren't solo missions. Neanderthals hunted in groups, using strategy and teamwork to bring down massive animals like mammoths, woolly rhinos, and giant elk. Their weapons were simple, but lethal. At sites like Schöningen in Germany, archaeologists have found 7-foot-long wooden spears, fire-hardened and balanced for thrusting. These spears weren't thrown from a distance. Neanderthals used them in close quarters, stabbing at their prey with enough force to penetrate thick hides. These spears were combined with tactics straight out of a military handbook. At La Côte de Saint-Brelade in Jersey, piles of mammoth bones show that Neanderthals drove herds over cliffs, using the terrain much like modern hunters use traps. Ambush was their specialty. Neanderthals studied their prey, learning their habits and weaknesses. They'd wait near water holes or migration routes, striking when animals were vulnerable. Sometimes they'd embed spears at an angle in the ground, allowing charging beasts to impale themselves. A tactic as clever as it was brutal. This wasn't mindless violence. It was calculated, like a chess grandmaster planning 3 moves ahead. Their intelligence was evident in their tools. Beyond spears, they crafted stone blades and scrapers, using flint and chert with surgical precision. These tools weren't just for hunting. They turned hides into clothing, bones into needles, and sinews into thread. Neanderthals were incredibly resourceful, wasting nothing. A single mammoth hunt could feed a group for weeks, clothe them for months, and provide tools for years. But hunting wasn't just about strength or tools, it was about trust. Neanderthals relied on each other, moving like a well-oiled machine. One hunter might distract a bison while another attacked from behind, and a third guarded the flank. This coordination required communication, planning, and a level of social cohesion that we often underestimate in prehistoric people. Their brains, slightly larger than ours, were designed for strategy as much as for survival. The Vanishing Act. Lessons from the past. So, if Neanderthals were so strong and so smart, why aren't they here today? Around 40,000 years ago, they disappeared, leaving only bones and tools behind. Their extinction wasn't a single event, but a slow, tragic decline driven by forces their brawn couldn't overcome. Firstly, there was competition. Homo sapiens, our ancestors, arrived in Europe around 45,000 years ago. Unlike Neanderthals who lived in small, isolated groups, Homo sapiens built vast social networks. Think of Neanderthals as small, tight-knit clans and Homo sapiens as a global trade system. These networks allowed Homo sapiens to share resources, ideas, and genes, giving them an edge in tough times. If one Neanderthal group ran out of food, they were on their own. Homo sapiens could rely on distant allies. Homo sapiens were also more innovative than Neanderthals. While Neanderthals crafted efficient tools, Homo sapiens went further, creating specialized blades, sewing needles, and even art. Cave paintings and engravings suggest Homo sapiens engaged in symbolic thinking, which reinforced their culture and problem-solving abilities. Neanderthals also had some symbolic behaviors like burying their dead, but they lagged behind in this cultural arms race. Then there was the environment. The Ice Age was harsh with climate shifts that turned forests into tundra and back again. The megafauna, the high-calorie fuel source for the Neanderthals' muscular bodies, began to decline. Without enough food, their high metabolism frames became a liability. Homo sapiens, more slender and built for endurance, could travel further to find smaller prey or plant matter. It was like comparing a gas-guzzling lorry to a fuel-efficient car. When the fuel ran low, the car kept going. Genetics didn't help either. Neanderthal populations were small with limited diversity. This made them vulnerable to diseases and environmental stresses. Interbreeding with Homo sapiens did happen. Around 2% of modern human DNA comes from Neanderthals, but it wasn't enough to save them. Their gene pool was a shallow pond, while Homo sapiens had an ocean. Ultimately, Neanderthals didn't lose because they were weak. They were outcompeted by a species that was less powerful but more connected, more adaptable, and better suited to a changing world. Their strength, once their greatest asset, couldn't save them when the rules of survival changed. Lessons for today. Power and adaptability. To bring this ancient tale to life, let's look at modern examples that mirror the Neanderthals' strength and struggle. Consider the Inuit people of the Arctic who, much like the Neanderthals, thrived in brutal environments. For centuries, they hunted seals and whales with spears and teamwork, relying on physical strength and deep knowledge of their land. Their survival mirrors the Neanderthal hunts, where power and strategy were inseparable. Yet like the Neanderthals, they've faced challenges from a changing world. Climate change and modernization threaten their traditional way of life. Much like the Ice Age shifts devastated the Neanderthals, or take the sport of strongman competitions. Athletes like Hafthor Julius Björnsson, who played the Mountain in Game of Thrones, lift weights that rival Neanderthal feats. Think 1,000-pound deadlifts or carrying 600-pound logs. These modern giants train for years to achieve what Neanderthals did instinctively. But even they rely on teams, coaches, nutritionists, and fans, reflecting the social networks that gave Homo sapiens an edge. Finally, consider the story of a small community in rural Mongolia where nomadic herders wrestle yaks and transport supplies across rugged steppes. Their physical strength is reminiscent of Neanderthal endurance, yet their survival hinges on cooperation with neighboring groups. When a severe winter hit in 2010, killing millions of livestock, those with strong community ties survived by sharing resources, much like Homo sapiens outlasted Neanderthals through networks. These stories show that strength is timeless, but survival often depends on connection and adaptability, lessons the Neanderthals learned too late. So what can we learn from the Neanderthal story? They were the strongest of human history, with bodies and minds forged for a brutal world. Yet their extinction teaches us that power alone isn't enough. In modern life, we often chase power, physical, financial, or social. But the Neanderthals remind us to build bridges, not just muscles. Connection, innovation, and flexibility are what get us through change. Think about your own life. Are you a lone Neanderthal relying solely on raw grit? Or are you building a network, learning new skills, and adapting to challenges? The Ice Age is long gone, but its lessons endure. True strength lies in balancing power with purpose, resilience with relationships. Let's honor the Neanderthals not by lamenting their downfall, but by learning from it. Because in an ever-changing world, survival belongs to those who evolve. Side story: the frozen brink. The storm came without warning. One moment, the sky over the glacial valley was serene and pale. The next, a wall of biting wind swept in, howling through the trees like a predator unleashed. Beneath that screaming sky, a handful of hominins hunkered down. 5 hunters huddled behind a rock, slick with frost. Their breath plumed into steam as they waited, eyes squinting not just against the cold, but against the beast that hunted them. This wasn't a battle of tactics or tools. This was raw, brutal survival. Among them was Kor, the eldest warrior of the clan. His arms were as thick as mammoth legs, his chest wide and scarred. Kor had once broken a cave bear's neck with nothing but a rock and sheer will. But this enemy, this snow-shrouded horror, was something else. It wasn't just the cold or the blizzard or the gnawing hunger. It was what lay beyond the white veil. A pack of colossal wolves, gaunt but relentless. 5 against 10. And the wolves had the wind advantage. But the humans had something else. Kor rumbled, a low growl of a signal. His companions moved, not gracefully, not silently, but with purpose. Dren, the youngest, plunged his spear into the snow, forcing it at an angle. A trap. Beside him, Lura wrapped sinew around a stone blade. Her teeth chattered, but her fingers were steady. Their tools were crude, but their minds were not. They didn't just survive, they adapted. And Kor rose. He stood tall in the wind, his skin already red from the frostbite. He roared, not at the wolves, but at the storm, at the world, at the gods, if they were listening. And when the first wolf lunged through the swirling whiteout, Kor snatched it midair with a tree-trunk arm. The snap of its spine was lost to the wind, but his clan heard it, felt it. Hope sparked in frozen hearts. They moved as one. Then Dren lured the second wolf onto the buried spear trap. Its own charge impaled it. Lura slashed at another from behind, her blade ripping hide and flesh. And Kor was everywhere. Every motion was violence made flesh. He swung a fallen tree branch like a club, crushed skulls with his fists, turned the blizzard red with fury and blood. But strength alone wasn't enough. The wolves circled. The storm raged. Dren slipped. A shadow lunged. And then Kor was there, shielding him with his back. Fangs tore into Kor's side. He didn't flinch. He didn't yield. With one final roar, he drove the wolf into the snow and collapsed over it, arms still locked in defiance. By morning, the storm had passed. The wolves were dead or gone. The clan was bloodied, but alive. Kor didn't rise, but his strength lingered. Not just in muscle or memory, but in the way his people learned to fight, to adapt, to trust each other. He was no king, no myth, just a man of his time. And in that frozen age, that meant everything. In the Ice Age, power alone wasn't enough. But when muscle met mind, when raw grit walked hand in hand with strategy, legends were born beneath the frost. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the Ice Age. If the Neanderthal story sparked your curiosity, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more epic tales from our past. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Were Neanderthals the ultimate survivors, or just a chapter in a bigger story? Let's keep the conversation alive, and I'll see you in the next adventure.